Hey y'all, we are back with another lesson from the Beyond Borders talk show. This week with neuro-language coach Christina Lorimer. In this lesson, you will get some fascinating advice on how to overcome your fears and even trauma of speaking English so that you can start communicating confidently. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
And if you are new here, every week we help you to understand fast native speech, to be understood by anyone, and to connect to the world. Like real lifer Oscar, who says that our videos motivate him to not give up. Now we're excited to join you on your English learning journey too. It's simple. Hit that subscribe button and the bell down below and you won't miss a single lesson.
When you're learning another language, you're adding something, you're not deleting. And I think that's a common misunderstanding. People think, oh, I need to delete my Portuguese in order to add in English. It's like, no, the goal here is for you to become bilingual or multilingual. And we all have multiple identities in our everyday lives all the time. I'm not the same person with my mom that I am necessarily, with my best friend. Like we all have multiple identities that we're juggling all the time. And now when we add in this new language, that brings with it sort of this other identity and this other Christina. People used to always joke with me. There was like a Spanish Christina and an English Christina and now a Portuguese Christina. And they're all just a little different. One's a little happier. One seems a little bit more moody. They have all of these different. And I like to play with that because that actually helps me change those in my brain. I identify so much with South America and Central and South America culturally. I identify a little bit more with some of those different cultural behaviors than I do with the United States cultural behaviors around these things. Yeah. And so it's almost like I'm living a part of my identity and a part of my full self when I'm abroad in some of these other countries that I feel like sometimes I have to restrict a little bit when I'm here. So, hence the multiple identities.
Yeah.
I think the number one ask around learning languages, specifically learning English, that I would put out there to everyone is to really be super patient and super kind to yourself as you're going through this process. Because I think that the feelings that most prevent you from learning English are all these feelings around that you're dumb and you're not getting it and it's not going fast enough, and a lot of things around comparing yourself to other people. And so just know that everyone goes through that. Everyone struggles with those things. And what your job, other than studying a little bit each day and really putting yourself out there, is to be really nice to yourself and really patient with your brain and your body, because it's, especially if you're living in another country, because it's actually going through a lot. And that will only help you actually, although it doesn't feel like it, it'll help you learn quicker if you're really just sort of patient and kind to yourself. So that would be my ask.
I absolutely love that. Being patient and being kind with yourself. I think that's applicable to learning English. And if you're able to do that with English, it's going to be beneficial for all other areas of your life as well. If you want to get better at speaking English, then at some point you're going to have to start speaking. Many learners tell me that they want to speak English, but they don't have anyone to practice with. Is this true for you? Well, we created the Real Life app to solve this problem. At the touch of a button, you will connect with another learner in a different part of the world for a quick and engaging conversation. So, not only will you practice and increase your confidence, but you will also discover other cultures. What's more, you can listen to our podcast and talk show episodes with full transcripts and vocabulary definitions, including the full interview with Christina for free. I bet this all sounds too good to be true. Well, it is true. You can download it for free right now by clicking up here or down in the description below. Or you can just search for Real Life English in the Apple app or Google Play Store. See you there.
Everyone has some sort of fear right? Because it's our brains, it's our natural, like it's just what happens when we step outside our
Right.
comfort zones and when we're super uncomfortable. It's not something that our brains love. It's trying to move us away from that feeling. And so it's this internal struggle, right? There's a
Mhm.
whole phase that you go through with language learning. Everyone's is different, but everyone has it where you're like,
Mhm.
you know, you have to be so intentional about it. And I think that intentionality, especially for this group of women, um, wasn't present for so long because that they thought that it was them and they were dumb and it was this and it was that and it was all these different things. And I'm saying, no, this is actually just what language learning is. Like, it's really uncomfortable. It's,
Mhm.
I like to talk about the magic of language learning and how much it changed my own life and how important I think it is and how I just think it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. At the same time, not romanticize it too much and
Mhm.
say, oh, and also it's going to be pretty hard
Yeah.
and you're going to be really uncomfortable. Because if you don't, then students feel uncomfortable and they're like, I'm doing something wrong.
Mhm.
Or someone doesn't understand them and they're like, it's all me. I'm
Right.
like, that's just no, that's just part of it. That's just
Yeah.
a big part of it.
That's terrific. I could not agree more. It's one of the things I've always tried to communicate to my students as well is, it's a difficult process and, everything that you want really is on the other side of your comfort zone. So, I mean, that's true
Yeah.
really with anything that you want to learn is
Yes.
you have to push through that awkwardness, that discomfort, like you were saying.
Totally. So I learned a lot. And I think the thing that I learned most in terms of like teaching English was it further reinforced what I already knew about the humanity of it all, the humanity of learning languages. And by that, I
Mhm.
mean, I'm very convinced by this point that learning a new language, but specifically when it comes to English, given all of its heavy background and history and
Mhm.
colonizing ways. um, when it comes to learning English, for sure, for specific populations, it sort of has nothing to do with the language, the nuts and bolts of the words and the structures and the vocabulary, and
Mhm.
everything to do, or maybe like 80-20, I don't know, with the psychological and emotional barriers that come along with that.
Mhm.
I was working with a small group of women who had been discriminated against basically their,
Mhm.
you know, lives in the language that they were now being told that they had to learn. So it was a lot.
Mhm.
um, at that point, I was very, very fluent in Spanish too. So I, really started to realize the um, privilege and the power in teaching English via the first language.
Mhm.
In that, we would obviously do a lot of activities in English, and we were learning English, but I wasn't implementing at all, and I never did before, but I really didn't with this group. A sort of like English only. We're only going to speak English in this environment. It was more like, oh, someone started crying, switch into Spanish, sit, circle. What's that all about?
Mhm.
Because without that, you can't learn. Your brain fogs up. There's no point. There's no point in trying to force, you know, activity out the continuous or something if your brain's not even working, if you can't think because you're so upset. So
Mhm.
I think that was that sort of like the main thing that I really took away from that experience. Yeah.
What were some of those kind of techniques that you came up with at that point to deal with people who had somewhat of a traumatic relationship, or maybe traumatic's not the right word, but a difficult
Oh, that's a
relationship
good word.
with the language?
That's a good way of
Mhm.
putting it. I mean, more general things are just trying to um, break down some of these like common myths that we
Mhm.
know, and these common misunderstandings around learning a language, like making mistakes is a bad thing, when in fact it's like one of the best things you can do as long as you learn
Of
from
course.
them. Sharing a lot of my own journey with Spanish while recognizing how different it is, right?
Mhm.
While recognizing I started learning Spain at a Spanish university. I started learning Spanish at a Spanish university in Spain. Like
Mhm.
that didn't really matter, but the fact that I also really had some struggles with it, which is what I do to this day with my students. They always get really surprised when I'm like, yeah, I was depressed when I couldn't speak. And they were like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's really hard. And, like, you're not the only one who feels this. So a little bit of normalizing what they were feeling. I think the simple fact of talking about it makes a huge impact. You don't have to love English. I get that you don't. And there's a lot of people who have to learn English all over the world that aren't like, the Portuguese word was just going to come into my mind, but like in love with it, and impassioned is what I was going to say. But what I want you to do is I want you to think of English as a stepmother. Okay. So you don't really have a choice in the matter. This thing, in this case, this person, this thing is going to live with you perhaps for the rest of your life. And being able to civilly and productively interact with it is going to be really, really important for you in all these different spheres of your life. So what if English was like the stepmother in the situation, so like a lot of that kind of stuff, reframing, metaphors, storytelling, all these things that we know that work in general, like when communicating something. But again, I think with her just saying that, like, I could see something click in her mind. And she was like, oh, and I was like, yeah, she's here to stay, whether you like it or not. This is just what's going to happen. And you're going to have to live with her. Like, how can we make this a livable relationship?
Yeah, that makes total sense. One of the other things that struck me there too is that it seems like you were helping your students to realize that the experience they were having wasn't unique to them. I think even people who don't have a traumatic experience, with the language, they tend to think if they're struggling with any part of it, that it's their problem, that they're the only one experiencing it. So it sounds like that's something that you helped them to break through a little bit, right? Is realizing that they weren't alone and kind of giving them that empathy.
When you find people that you identify with, that will come, right? If you're a self-learner and you really want to go at it on your own too, just always remember like the basic tenets of what's most important, which is that the English needs to be relevant to your life. It needs to be useful. You need to have some need for it. And it like has to be interesting. Because if it's not, you're not going to keep studying. You need to like it, which is why some people are like, well, this person said on Instagram that it's terrible to study English with music. I'm like, but are you in love with that song? Will you listen to it 500 times? Because I have songs that I listen to 500 times. And that helped me learn Spanish and helped me learn Portuguese. And if you are in love with that, if you're in love with How I Met Your Mother or Breaking Bad or, RuPaul's Drag Race, whatever it is, like, then sure, like learn English with that series. Just make sure you're intentional about it and do these different things. But like, I'm not a big fan of limiting students. I mean, obviously if they're terrible materials and they like don't make any sense and they're wrong, but like has to be relevant, has to be useful, and has to be interesting. You won't go wrong if you set aside some time and hang out with those English materials and follow the people that you like. Eventually you'll get there. It might just take a little bit longer, but you'll get there.
Now, I hope that you've gotten some great insights with today's lesson. Why not put something new that you learned to practice by speaking right now on the Real Life app? Remember that you can also listen to the rest of this interview with Christina for free on the Real Life app or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. And now it's time to go beyond the classroom and live your English. Aw, yeah. Something interesting I saw that I want to ask you about is, what is the Pareto principle? And because I've heard about this applied to business and things like that, but how do you apply it to learning a language?
Yeah, this is quite, I find this quite commonly misunderstood actually with language learning. So the Pareto principle is also known as the 80-20 rule. And it's the idea that a very small number of things account for most of the effect.